So we talked about mixing some stuff together.
Uh-huh.
But what happens when, like, a sugar cube dissolves in water?
Well, that's a very fascinating process. So if we think about the structure, if we get down to the molecular level, a sugar cube, something like this, would be made up of little tiny particles called molecules. And in fact, this is the structure of what a salt crystal would look like. And a sugar molecule made up of sucrose is actually much more complicated. It is a molecule that looks like this. So it's amazingly complicated. It's called a disaccharide because it has two sugar molecules hooked together. Okay? So it looks like this. And what happens is inside of the sugar cube or inside of a single crystal of sugar, those molecules are all stuck together. And so what has to happen in order for those things to dissolve is the water molecules pull all of those molecules apart and they spread out inside of the solution. So the sugar is the solute and the water is the solvent in that situation. So we can't see this because these things are so tiny that we can't even see them with a microscope, even the highest power microscope. So let's do something really fun. Let's send Claude in to investigate what happens when we drop a sugar cube into the water and those sugar molecules start to dissolve. Let's send him into the Claude compressor.
Yes, I think we have to.
All right, so we're going to put Claude in. Now this is gonna be rough, Claude. We're gonna have to send you down really tiny.
You got it,
I'm
buddy.
thinking like 25 angstroms. This is gonna be super tiny. Crank that one down all the way, and I think we're good to go. A sugar cube is a gigantic matrix of trillions and trillions of sugar molecules. And sucrose, or table sugar, is a disaccharide molecule. That means it's made of two molecules hooked together, one glucose and one fructose. Water is a polar molecule with a positive and a negative charge. The sucrose molecules on the surface of the sugar cube move into the spaces between the molecules, and then the glucose and fructose molecules get separated as the positive and negative charges on the water molecules pull them apart and attach to the charged region on the sugars. These tiny molecules keep filling in the spaces between the water molecules until the sugar cube is totally dissolved and we can't see them anymore because they're so small. Now we have the solution of sugar water. But not everything dissolves in water. This sugar cube dissolves in water, and salt will dissolve in water because water is a polar substance and sugar and salt are both polar molecules. But there are other things that aren't polar. Okay? So in this graduated cylinder, we've got some vinegar. Now I've added a little bit of green food coloring to it to make it a little more visible. And what have you got in the jar there?
Some vegetable oil.
All right, so vegetable oil. Now we have a saying in chemistry, like dissolves like. So if vegetable oil is polar and we put it into the vinegar solution, which would be very polar, then it will dissolve. If the oil is non-polar, then it won't dissolve. So let's see what will happen. All right, kids, make your predictions at home, whether you think this is gonna mix and dissolve together or whether you think it's gonna stay separate. Now let's see what happens. Go ahead and pour some of that in there. Keep going, keep going. All right, that's good enough.
All right.
And what do we see?
Doesn't look like it dissolved.
It did not dissolve. So what this tells us is that these two different liquids have different polarity. The acetic acid, which is the vinegar solution, and the water are very polar. And the oil is very non-polar, so they don't mix together. So God's put these different properties into these two different substances, and we can take advantage of those to accomplish different types of tasks. You ever eaten a salad before?
Yes.
What's in that bottle right over there?
It looks like house Italian.
All right, spin it around so the camera can see the back side of the side of the bottle there. What do you notice happening inside of the bottle there?
Well, it looks like all the oils is up here.
Yep.
And a lot of the dressing, the good stuff is down here.
All the flavor particles. So down here we have a lot of the vinegar that's making up the main part of the dressing, and up here the oil. So before we use a product like this, what's it a good idea to do? If we used it right now, what's going to happen?
I'm gonna get all oil and
All
no
the
flavor.
oil, no flavor. So shake it up and let's see what happens. All right, now we've mixed that, and if we let that sit for a few minutes, maybe in 15 minutes or so, we're going to be back to the condition we had before because those substances are going to separate out. So the rule of thumb is like dissolves like.